Hello, good morning, everybody. It's Ready, Set, Action again. Here we are. Today, you're joining Deborah Horowitz and Christina Whitmer. That's me. This is three actionable tips on data privacy and security. And no excuses, small businesses. You can't say I'm too small of a business anymore. It just don't work. So let's roll into this extremely important topic. And Dee, you want to sort of give us an intro of what our plan is today?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this because over the weekend I was talking to a friend of mine, and she actually got four data breach letters in the
Mm.
mail over the weekend. And she was like, I cannot believe this. It's like nothing's secure anymore.
It's true.
And it's frightening for everyone,
Hmm.
because it's just like, okay, my information has got to be out there like a zillion times over, right? With just all of the different crumbs that you leave all over the place every time you do any kind of transaction online.
Hmm.
And so, we were talking about the impact that it has on the reputation of that business, right? And I think
Hmm.
that that's something that, forget about the expense that goes into making sure that your data is secure.
Hmm.
It goes
Right.
beyond that. It can really cripple a business. In fact, my local chamber did a session with people that handle cybersecurity for corporations. It was earlier in the year. And I was just astounded because I think back then I was at that mindset, oh, I'm so small, nobody's going to
Hmm.
mess with me kind of thing. But it does really get you thinking about it, because it stops your entire business when that
Yes.
happens.
Hmm.
And so that can be very, very costly, plus the reputation,
Hmm.
and people may not feel secure coming back and doing business with you again
Sure.
afterward. It all depends on how you handle the situation.
For sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts around the whole subject?
Well, I mean, I'll share something too that was from a colleague of mine a couple of weeks ago. I mean, honestly, I think there's over the last 6 months, there's been multiple moments where I've been like catching my breath because I'm like, what am I doing the things that I need to do? And I think that's why this topic came up for us. And I thought this is perfect. This is, when you're a small business, you don't know, you don't know if your IT services is doing things for you. You don't know what your requirements are. So, but I had this colleague of mine tell me that they through all the things that can happen, right? People capture your data, passwords, they get into some kind of system, maybe something that's more related to your emails. They start, shadowing things. They're just looking for opportunities, right? So this person actually was paying a bill to one of their vendors. I think it was partially the vendor's issue that this happened, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you're responsible. So through that conversation of, hey, here's how you pay this rather large bill, it was intercepted and they ended up paying someone that was not supposed to be paid.
Oh man.
Well, that money's gone. The vendor is still owed their money because you have an obligation to get your money to the vendor. And it was, I mean, I just literally, when he was telling me this, I was like I just had this moment of, and depending on your business type, if you're anything in like construction or building things, like there's some big checks that are going to go back and forth, right? You may not
Right.
make all of that, but there's definitely some things that you're paying out that are large sums of money. So, um, you know, you just have to think about the whole of what you have, your phone, your computers, the way you can log into places. You have to really think about the totality of it all. And so
Mhm.
that's why, I think this will be fun to break it down. So I'll jump into tip number one. So,
Okay.
lock down your data like it's cash, right? So, and big cash, right? Not a one. Lock down data like it's a bunch of cash, right? So, here's some just simple things for you to start with, right? So, password hygiene, right? We all know, whatever, however many years ago, we had the same password for things. We'd add a character here and there. It was a word that you could pronounce. Maybe you added a zero for an O or an at sign for an A. Like all these clever things are just gone, right? So you need to scrub those. So you need strong passwords. I've heard of some tips for making them too, but obviously you see browsers will request them. Um, there's also several tools. I think it's 1Pass, and there's a few others where they take your passwords and they add to them. Like that's how it works, right? So when you have that password manager, it's basically adding a layer of security to what you have, and it's sort of locking it down for you. So you probably should start just looking at something like that. But you just have to know that once you do that, you can't lose that information, or you'll have to
Right.
start a whole new thing over again. So but password hygiene, so strong passwords, unique for everything, right? You don't want someone to steal a password here and then have access to your bank, right? Two
Right.
factor authentication, right? So you install
So
that app on your phone every time you log in, and sometimes you can give yourself a pass, right? Like don't do this again for 2 or 3 weeks, but then you go back in and you have to do that two-factor authentication. You can also do to a text message, right?
right.
And that's similar. I don't like the text messages much. I feel like if somebody's really, really trying to get to you, there must be a way that it just seems a little more vulnerable. But just know that when you have a new phone, that app needs to be moved over, or you've actually lost a big connection there. So you just have to, sort of have your data security checklist and plan with you. So password hygiene is one. Look at a manager, a password manager, as a tool that you can use. Usually, if you buy the business one, they have like a free family versions and things like that. So to look at that. Second one is item in here is software updates, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So make it automatic. If you're the kind of person who overthinks it, make it automatic, but make it happen when you shut down your computer. Turn off your phone every now and then so that things get installed, things get reset. Um, do those things. Secure Wi-Fi. It's tricky, right? You ever been to the airport or
Yeah.
places, a restaurant, and you need the internet and you've connected because you're weighing it and you're saying this is it. Well, after you're done, maybe you want to reset your phone, right? A lot of those things that get in your phone that are like watching character things, they often are reset when you reset your phone. So just try to take some steps to protect yourself as good as possible. I use AVG as a basic sort of internet security tool. I also have it on my phone. So, some things like that are basic things that you can add as well. So, you know, all I'll say is that nobody's too small to target.
Yeah.
It's just you might be a cog in another person's wheel, and it could be like just sort of this ripple effect of things that get affected, and you just don't know if it's not just what's on your computer. It's just not what it's just a combination of things. So I really think of it as a community, and play your part with all the people you work with, all those kind of things. And I'll say that you know just you have an obligation to people, your clients and customers, to do
Hmm.
everything you can. So protect yourself, make sure you're doing these things, because if you're not, and something happens that their stuff is compromised, I mean, you
Yeah.
could get sued as for just being negligent, right? Not
Yeah.
taking a reasonable amount of caution. So look into these things, take a class, go to a networking thing, start getting this stuff locked down for yourself. So that's tip number one: lock down your data.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hmm.
It's just a necessity these days. It's the
Yeah.
times that we live in,
Yes.
right?
It's very annoying, but yes.
Very annoying. All those different passwords and the password manager. And it's
Yes.
just like,
Yes.
what do
Hmm.
I do if I lose you,
Right.
password manager? You know,
Yeah.
I won't even know what my name is if I lose you.
Right. For sure.
So
So
for
what do
tip
you
number,
have? Yeah.
yeah, for tip number two, I think it's be transparent
Hmm.
about how you are managing your customers' data. Don't be creepy about it, but make sure that your privacy policy
Hmm.
is, visible on the
Yes.
website, that
Okay.
it's very, very easy to understand,
Hmm.
what data are you collecting, how are you storing it, what is it being used for, all that sort of stuff. And with data collection, I think be picky about what you really need to have.
Yes. 100%.
Um,
Hmm.
the I guess less is more.
Hmm.
Uh, in today's world, you don't
Yeah.
want to have to be responsible for too much data, right?
Yeah. Don't ask for their birth date if you're just curious, right? Like, don't, because you are responsible. Good point.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Or mother's maiden name or any of that kind of stuff. My God. So, just be really, really particular about
Hmm.
how you're setting up your controls on your end.
Hmm.
If they're logging into a shared account, what do what kind of information are you requiring them to pass through and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, do not assume that they're giving you consent.
Hmm.
Make sure that you're asking for
Hmm.
that consent to send those marketing emails, that you're getting them to opt into those things versus the old opt out philosophy in
Right.
marketing.
Yeah, I've done that.
I'm going to spam you until you tell me enough, right?
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, so I think that, that's really all part of it. And, don't stockpile the data, right? Just, you know, do a review
Hmm.
every quarter or every 6 months and say, how am I using this data,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know what's valuable for me to be keeping in my possession, and
Hmm.
then what do I need to change moving forward. Can I do
Hmm.
without X, Y, and Z,
Right.
um, or do I just need Y and that's it?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that will keep your risk a little bit lower because you'll have less data that you are responsible for on your end. But of course,
Right.
it's going to depend on the type of business.
Hmm.
If you're an online retailer of sorts, whether it's a small business or whatever,
Hmm.
you're going to have a lot of, you're going to have financial information on that customer and all kind, their home address and all kinds of stuff. So you just, really
Yeah.
have to make sure that the amount of data that you are storing and that your security is not only meeting that, but maybe
Hmm.
exceeding that level,
Right.
of encryption and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might need to do an audit of all the places where that data is stored. Like, you
Yeah.
probably might have a billing system, right? Check.
Right.
And most of it, fortunately, when you're using those software as if service tools, that a lot of that accountability is on them, right? But
Yes.
and then you have maybe wherever your emails are coming out of, you're collecting data there, and your website. So kind of just do a quick inventory of where those things are, and check that they're meeting some level of expectations. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, the other thing for the emails that you mentioned, you know, depending if you're emailing out of the US or even certain places, California, like, there are different levels like GDPR, like
Yeah.
the obligation you have to ensure that this is an email that's wanted or that has been subscribed to. Even, one clicks unsubscribes. You've probably seen those in some of your emails where you can just click up top and do that. So um, you don't want to get on someone's annoyed list where they're going to start going after people like that. So make sure you're following rules. And depending on where you're emailing, if you're doing any kind of global emailing, you're going to have another level of expectations and standards that you need to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure that you are educated on all of that, the canned spam laws and all of those things. Yeah.
Hmm. Cool. Very good. So transparent, not creepy. I like that.
So what about tip number 3?
Yeah. So tip number
Mhm.
three is a little bit of sort of how does that work? Like, it takes a village to do your business, right? Like you could be a solopreneur, but it doesn't take long for you to either have someone that's helping you, a collaborator, a client. Like as you start growing your business, you have more people around you that at some point you may be sharing data with, right? So there's things, right? There's Google Drives, there's the Microsoft Teams share. Like there's places where you start to share information, and you really need to think about how you're setting the expectations for vendors, for employees, for partners, for whoever these people are, with how they treat any data that you share with them, right?
Mhm.
I've seen things in emails, and I don't know actually how binding that is, but where it says the things shared in this email are confidential, something like that. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's. I mean, I've seen it actually with enough corporations that it must be, something that's probably good to do, but you have to think about the expectations. And so I have a small team, and we've been talking about this for months now. But, the question is, I had to change the agreement of working with people, right? So I have contractors and then I have employees, but both of them have expectations. I had to do a new policy on passwords. And I said failure to follow these rules could result in termination of your job or termination of your contract. Because to be quite honest, if I find out that that's happening, it puts it means that I could get sued, I could lose everything. Like it just
Yeah.
it's so dangerous that you really have to lock it down, and you need to make sure people know that it's not a this is not a conversation. This is an obligation that we have to be as smart as possible, right? It doesn't mean that we're
Mhm.
smarter than hackers. I mean, they're very strong. They have a lot of tools, but it just means that we have to do the due diligence to be as secure as possible for us, for
Yeah.
our clients. So
Yeah.
so we're
Absolutely.
trying to do conversations, sort of this training, mantra sharing information, best practices, having refreshers, and then making sure everybody sees, hey, this is the policies. Just, make sure you
Mhm.
understand what this means. Are you following this? That kind of stuff. How can we help? You may even want to consider a consultant in this kind of space who can
Yeah.
come in and help from an outside view of giving you some recommendations to lock things down. It's important enough that it might be something where you come in, somebody helps you, whether just like taxes or filing your LLC, the
Yeah.
things that you want an expert to help you with. And this
Mhm.
very well could be one of those things.
I
You know,
think that's very true,
mhm,
that, I think sometimes, what we may be doing at home,
mhm,
right? Like with our personal emails, where we're actually looking at what is that return address actually from.
right. Mhm,
Like when you get that email, oh, we can't deliver your package until you
mhm.
verify your address with us,
Yeah.
know?
Mhm,
All those kinds of things that are going on out there to get into your computer and get data.
mhm,
Um, I think sometimes in the work environment, an employee will just presume that any email that's coming in is a
mhm.
legitimate email,
For sure.
you know, and they
Mhm.
just don't take that extra step necessarily all the
Yeah.
time to say, oh, where's this from address
Mhm.
actually? you know?
No, yeah. I mean, and it's not, it's funny because I've heard people say like the timing sometimes is very powerful. They catch you when you're distracted or something's going on. Like, I think it's just happening so much that it's going to hit you at a time where you're most vulnerable. Like a
Yes.
client, we have things that get shipped to them. She had told us that she accidentally clicked on one of those things, like to check tracking or something like that. And that was a huge mistake. So she was like in the penalty box of her company for doing that. But so yeah, it's I think it's, you might think they're catching you at that time, but I think it's constantly coming at you.
Yeah.
So it's going to hit you at whatever that worst time is for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For sure. So,
So,
yeah, make sure that you definitely stay on top of that with your employees as well, and
hmm
that everybody continues to get that reinforcement,
hmm
that, just that reminder every couple of months or whatever it is that you
yeah.
set up for your system. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good.
And I think,
Good.
it's just like anything, like you think, well, I can't afford, when you start a business, there's so much you have to think about buckets of money. And I really encourage people to take whatever budget they have. Let's just say, it's $100 or $1,000. Like just take that into percentages and business, like get the consultant, get this stuff done at some level. You have to incrementally grow all of this stuff, especially if you're starting your business without any kind of funding or major investment. Like you
Yeah.
have to do these things, or you will just, stuff you've put your heart and soul and energy into is could just go crumble real fast if you don't lock this stuff down.
Hmm.
So,
Check out the Small Business
mhm.
Administration.
Yes.
You know,
hmm
I think there's even a section on the government website that talks about cybersecurity for small
hmm
businesses that has some good, you know, tools and tips
hmm
to help you along the way. And then if you feel like you're still not fully getting it together,
hmm
definitely consider that consultant,
Right.
because the investment that you put into it now may save your organization down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And commonly, right, that prevention is always cheaper than the cure. That is extremely
Yes.
common and often true. I mean, this is certainly true in this case.
Yeah.
And it's prevention. It's not necessarily you need this constant, payment to someone for some kind of whatever. It's about
Yeah,
just checking off these boxes and continuing to educate yourself on that. So,
for sure. For
anything
sure.
else you want to give for thoughts today?
Oh, I think that was about it.
Okay.
So we
Well, it's
talked.
a lot to do here, so I think we ran through it fairly at a good pace, but don't don't dismiss that these are some things you need to start on like right now, if you haven't buttoned these up. So just to sort of recap, we've got some, lock down your data, right? So how do you do passwords? How do you have your security of your Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff. Transparency with how you collect data, right? Tell people and figure out how you store and secure what you use, and then look at the the group and the team and think about how you have responsibilities and accountabilities for the people that you work with how they need to store data, and what does a vendor need to have in order to work with you as far as security goes.
Yeah.
So start looking at those, check off the list, don't say later. Let's get this
Right.
one done really quickly. So
Say
um,
yesterday. Yeah.
yes. So thank you guys for joining us today. I hope you will join in next time for Ready, Set, Action. It's Deborah Horowitz and Christina Whitmer. Follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify. We're other places, Facebook, Instagram, we're all over. So I hope to see you